The Honourable Hill.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, this debate is in honour and remembrance of the youth of 1976, who rose up against a system that left them fundamentally excluded, cut out, and isolated. In that context, a brutal government used the language of instruction in schools to alienate and disenfranchise the youth. The apartheid government underestimated the ability of angry youth to agitate for change and eventually overthrow an entire system. Today, South Africa's youth are excluded and disenfranchised not by language, but by a government and a ruling party that has put politics above people. Young people need to feel like they have a stake in our society, that they can be a part of and contribute to the building of our country. They need to feel government is for them, in their corner, and working day and night to ensure they have a better chance in life. The DA and the ANC agree that the only sustainable way to build an inclusive economy is to sustainably grow the economy and create jobs. We agree on that end. But the tragedy of the last 4 years of ANC government in particular is the complete inability of the ruling party to agree on the means. The paralyzing divisions within the ruling alliance have meant that the government has been unable to implement even a single policy initiative aimed at breaking down the dividing barriers in our economy. Today, Chairperson, is 1,209 days since President Zuma stood at this very podium and announced the introduction of a youth wage subsidy, a plan to give young South Africans a chance to get their first job and start on the pathway out of poverty. How can young South Africans take seriously anything that the President says from this podium ever again? How could the President come here and make a concrete promise to the country, and specifically to the youth, and then turn his back on them so spectacularly? Why did he come here and make that commitment if he knew it did not have support from his own benches? That was massively disrespectful to young South Africans. Today, the Deputy Minister announced that the 5 billion rand budgeted for the youth wage subsidy is no longer there. It's gone. It was a massive announcement hidden in his speech. He says it will now be used to fund the Youth Employment Accord. This is surely a huge slap in the face of the National Treasury and the Finance Minister. But it's typical of the complete confusion around this issue for the past 3 years. First, the President announces it, then the Economic Development Minister decries it. Then the Finance Minister announces it, and the COSATU SG decries it. Then the President re-announces it, and today the Deputy Minister re-decries it. If the President had implemented when he first said he would, the program would already have benefited more than 440,000 young people. Chairperson, where the DA governs, we did not need to have any paralyzing internal political battle about an obviously sensible solution. We saw the crisis, we saw the urgent need for intervention, and we acted. Where the DA governs, we implemented our version of the youth wage subsidy as soon as we possibly could, and thousands of young people have already benefited. And they're starting to build a more prosperous future for themselves in sustainable, decent jobs. I want to make a commitment today to all young South Africans and to my colleagues in the ANC benches. Here's a promise that young South Africans can rely on from this podium. Wherever the DA is elected to government in South Africa, we will immediately implement the youth wage subsidy. If we are elected to government in Gauteng in 2014, or should I say when, we will implement the youth wage subsidy on day one. Now let me come to the Honourable Manamela, who's obviously speaking after me, unfortunately. One would think the point of the Youth Employment Accord is very clear and simple: to provide a real plan for job creation for young people, Honourable Manamela. Here's a crisis, here's a solution, we need to create jobs. But I think the Honourable Manamela let slip the real point of the Youth Employment Accord in this House earlier this year. Speaking in no less a debate than the SONA debate, he said, and I quote, "As the ANC, we believe the Youth Accord speaks to the call for, no, not jobs, unity, compromise and consensus." In his own words. There it is, there's the truth. Weak, weak, weak indeed. The Youth Employment Accord has nothing to do with jobs for young people. As the Honourable Manamela said, it's everything to do with keeping this party together. It's all about unity inside the ANC. It's all about keeping the warring factions happy and at peace. Not about jobs for the youth, it's about politics over people. And he said it in the SONA debate. Speaking a little bit later about his big alternative. They reject the youth wage subsidy, but he says, in the face of a real concrete policy proposal on the table that would create jobs now, the policy of this party, the youth wage subsidy, Honourable Manamela's alternative is, again, I quote, "We need to make education fashionable." We need to make education fashionable. In the midst of 7 million young people unemployed in this country, Honourable Manamela, his alternative to the youth wage subsidy is to make education fashionable. I say he should get real, and I think the young people of South Africa should vote for the Democratic Alliance, because next year we will implement the youth wage subsidy. You never will.